And we brought something like 150 de Havilland doves across the North Atlantic from England to Prestwick, Scotland, to Keflavik, Iceland, to Bluey West 1, Greenland, to Goose Bay, Labrador, to Montreal, and then down in the States wherever they were going to go. And it developed from that into quite a lot of other deliveries, and we took C-54 to England, and we took B-17s to France for their photo recon unit, and we took a lot of airplanes to Japan, and we took a lot of airplanes to Peru and to Paraguay and other places. Well, one of the round trips that we made, we went all the way around the world. We took a PBY from California to Indonesia, and then C-46 from Bangkok to Washington, D.C. And that, for those, I have got these little itineraries written out so that I wouldn't forget. Because on the PBYs, we started out from California and went to Oakland and Honolulu and Wake and Guam, and then Balikpapan, Borneo, and then to Jakarta, Indonesia. And Jakarta, we reported in, and they said they need to go to Bandung, so we took them to Bandung, Indonesia. While we were there, we saw them making batiks, and that's a very, very interesting kind of thing to see. They take a little thing, a little tiny. It's okay. A little tiny. Well, it's got a tube at the end of it, and they put a wax in there, and then they put wax on each side of this material that they don't want the dye to go on, and they run it through the dye, and then they boil out the wax, and then start all over again with the next color that they want to put on that piece of cloth. We took the airline from there to Singapore, and I found that I had let my immunizations last, and so I had to get my shots there, and then we took the airline from there to Bangkok, and we picked up this C-46. Well, C-46 is quite a good airplane usually, but we didn't know that the persons that had first taken it from, can you people hear in the back?
Yes.
Okay, we didn't know that the people who had taken it from Hong Kong to Bangkok had abandoned it there because it was so bad. And nobody told us that. And so we got in, and every time we took off, something happened, and every time we landed, it was a happy surprise. And we started out, and we went from Bangkok to Rangoon, Burma. I guess Burma is now Myanmar or whatever that it is. And then to Calcutta, and then to Delhi, and we asked for permission to stop in New Delhi and see the Taj Mahal, because we were just there, and it was a shame not to do it, but they refused to give us permission. So we just flew around it instead, and we flew around it just at sunset, and it was so beautiful. It was just so beautiful. And then from there we went to Karachi, and that's Pakistan. And then we went to Sharjah, which is in Trusha, Oman. Well, Sharjah is a little tiny sand field, which is out in the desert, and the RAF people have that particular base, and they have a big rectangular compound where they stay at night, and everybody goes in at night, and they've got guards on the gate because, I mean, people don't believe this. This was 1951, but the Arabs still will steal women and cattle, and they use what they use the women for. Anyway, that's what they do, and so that's quite exciting to be in that particular place. And from there we went to Basra in Iraq, and even then, in 1951, the British were evacuating all their families and things because there was all this tension over the oil. And we're not too popular in Iraq even today. And then from there we went to Damascus in Syria, and then from there we went to Athens in Greece, and then Rome, and then Paris, and then we ended up in Bovingdon, England, and to ask them if they couldn't please do something about this airplane, because when I say that each time we took off something happened, this was not a joke. I mean, this really did happen. And the one, we found out in Bovingdon that the one engine had about 3 or 4 different kinds of spark plugs in it, and some of them didn't even have there was a hole where they were supposed to be a spark plug, and so they said that they couldn't really fix it, so that we had to wait till we got to the States to do that. So then we went from there to Prestwick and to Keflavik and to Bluey West. And when we went to Bluey West, at Prestwick, they had asked us if we could give radio reports for this dove, de Havilland dove, because they didn't have the right frequencies on the radio. And we said yes, we could do that. So we did, and Keflavik was fine. And we started out, the dove would start out before us because it was so much slower. And then we would take off, and then we'd try to end up about the same time at the place that we were trying to get to. Well, Bluey West 1 in Greenland is Greenland is a misnomer because it's a great big ice-filled continent, and there's nothing green about it. So we took off from Keflavik to go to Bluey West 1, and we got just past the dove's point of no return, and not quite to ours, but just past our point of no return. And the point of no return is the point at which you can't go back to where you came from. You don't have enough gas to get back, and so they were past their point of no return, and they came on the radio and told us to go back, and we said we can't do it, and told them why.
Let's try something else. This won't actually go bad.
Okay. Is this better? Okay. So they said we can't do it because the dove hasn't got enough gas. So they said, well, come on then, and the airplane. I wish I could show you. Well, I can show you some pictures of Bluey West 1, and it's a little runway that goes uphill at the end of a 35-mile fjord, and it's all sort of semi mountains on either side, and the only landmark that there is in the whole place is a sunken ship. That when you come to that sunken ship, you go to the right, and so what they did, they said, okay, well, first they said, we'll ditch in the fjord and we'll come and rescue you, but we said we didn't want to ditch. So anyhow, we met the B-17 on top of the overcast. They said, we'll meet you on top of the overcast, and then you get on one wing, and the Dove will get on the other wing, and we'll go down through the overcast, and then you'll get in. So we did that, and we started down in, and it was so dense that you couldn't even see. So we went right back up, and we said, we can't do this. And so they said, well, we'll take the Dove, and we'll go down just with one. And when we get down, we'll let you know when you stay up, the C-46 stay up, because we had more gas. And so they did, and the Dove got down, and then they said, we'll do the same thing with you. And they said, when you can see the water, let us know. So we went down through, and we got down, and we kept going down farther and farther, and pretty soon we were about 50 feet over the water, and no sunken ship. We said, we don't know where to go. And so we were going on ahead, and just then I saw the sunken ship, and so we were able to get there. And that was the first time I've ever kissed the ground when we landed there. That was the end of that. And then, of course, from there on, the Dove was okay, because they could cope okay, because they were overland most of the rest of the way. And so anyhow, let's see what happened after that. Pam doesn't know either. Well, anyhow, we managed to get that. Oh, I know. Yeah, when we finally got the thing down to Washington, D.C., and we told them, look, this is what's happening all the time with the oil. I didn't tell you about the oil, did I? No. Oh, well, every time we'd land, we'd have to add lots and lots of oil. And so we knew that there was something that was quite wrong. And finally, in Washington, D.C., they found out what was wrong with it. But they were going to just keep the airplane and use it. And I think it was Flying Tigers that bought it, but I'm not sure. But anyhow, they decided that it was so tail heavy that there was no way that they could take it to California, that it wasn't safe to fly. This is after coming all the way from Bangkok. So anyhow, that was the end of that. Then we had these B-25s that we took to China, to Taiwan, for the Chinese nationalists. We took, I think, 6 or 8 of them. I'm not sure, but anyhow, we went from Glendale to San Francisco, and then to Honolulu and Wake, and then went Wake and Guam and Okinawa, and then we went on from there to Taichung, which is in the mountains, and then eventually we had to take a train down to Taipei, and then come on home on the airline from there. But when we went to Taichung, they told us, when you come when you come down to Taipei on the train, don't be surprised at the people hanging off the side of the train. And it was really true. I mean, there were people hanging, just hanging onto the doors and everything. And that's the way they went all the way from Taichung to Taipei. And then we had this PBY to South America. There were the PBYs. I don't know how many of you probably all know what a PBY is. It's an amphibious aircraft, and it's got a steel hull, and it's twin engines. And so we took off, and it was going to Belém, Brazil, and we took off and it was okay, and then we landed in Phoenix, and from between Phoenix and New Orleans, the gear didn't want to come down, and so we fiddled around with it, and it came down. So that was fine. Then we went into Miami, and the same thing happened, and they put ambulances and things on the side of the airport, and it came down. So then we had them look at it, and they said, it's all right. And yes, so then we took off to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico. Yeah, and San Juan was okay. Then we went to Georgetown, British Guiana, and it was okay. And then we got to Belém, Brazil, and it wouldn't come down. And so we tried everything, and finally Jack even broke the solenoid to see if he wouldn't make it fall down. And they said, oh no, this is at Georgetown, this is not Belém, Georgetown. And they said, then you'll have to land in the river. And we said, we can't land in the river. And they said, well, try anyhow. And Jack said, I don't want to race the crocodiles to the shore. And so eventually we had to put down on the runway, and with the nose wheel was the part that wouldn't come down. And we held it off as long as we could, and then finally it went down onto the nose. And luckily it was a steel hull, so the only damage that was done was this little bit of ruffling on the bottom of the aircraft. And and the British were moving out, and we were moving, and we were just coming in, and there was no fire truck, there were no ambulances, there just were a few hand extinguishers, and so we were not too pleased with this, but we did get down, and actually on this particular flight, we had Jack's mother and father with us, and we were taking them to Brazil because they wanted to see South America, and of course this was illegal as the devil. But so anyhow, we did get down, and there were a few little bruises and things, but nobody got really hurt. And so what they did was to jack the nose up and force the nose wheel down, and then they tied it. They fastened it anyhow so that it stayed down, and we flew it the rest of the way to Belém like that. And we don't know how pleased the Brazilians were to get this aircraft, but at least it was in one piece. So that was the end of that. Let's see. Well, I guess. Oh yes. Okay. Pam's my little. Okay. Okay. Don't put it on yet. When we came back to California, we were stationed in California. When we came back to California, when Jack was in college, he used to do stunt work in the movies, and so he knew quite a few of the people that were there. And so this one man asked him, "Why don't you write your story, and we'll make a movie of it?" So he did, and they took the story and decided, we don't like the way you write, so they paid somebody else $16,000 to rewrite it. And they didn't like the way he wrote, so they made a fiction out of it, and they made a movie out of it. And Jeff Chandler and Lana Turner were the people that played Jack and me. They called them Mike and Maggie in the film. Okay. That it looks like the men have got beards, but they don't really. Okay, that's all. No. Okay. That was in 1957. In 1959, Jack was taking Twin Beach out to. Oh, in the meantime, this is an aside. We had been taking things to the Far East by going through Europe and the Middle East and so forth, and going a long way around. Well, Jack wondered whether if we put portable gas tanks in to the aircraft, if that would be, if they could go via the Pacific. And so they did that, and that worked out very well. Well, in Wake Island, the gasoline people, Standard Oil, dear souls, said that they could not turn the pressure down on the hoses. It was much too strong, and it was splashing all over the inside of the aircraft. And so they said no, they couldn't do it. And so Jack and Walt Henderson, who was his radio operator navigator, said okay. So they spent 8 hours wiping it out, so forth, and airing it out. And they took off just before midnight. And when they took the radio and filed position report at 5,000 feet, the airplane simply blew up. And so they were killed. And that was the end of that. And then I never did do any more flying after that, because Jack was the kingpin, and he was the person who got all the contracts and so forth. I mean, he was the public relations person, and it was our company. But anyhow, that was the end of that. And that's the end of my talk. I have lots of pictures up here if anybody wants to see them. I've got all kinds. Yes. Oh, they started out by calling it Lion in the Sky, which I thought was wonderful, and they found out that somebody already had that one. So then they called it something else, and then they ended up calling it Lady Takes a Flyer. My daughter said it's still on the Late Show sometimes. But I don't think you can get it in a video. I don't think so. Yes.
I'm from a generation through the 60s that saw a generation that thought that we laid the groundwork for women. But I have to say, with all the experience that you've had, truly, your generation opened up the pathway for women to become astronauts in our space program.
Oh, thank you.
And one of the questions I would like to ask you, first of all, I thank you for coming here. This has been very, very interesting, very informative. A lot of the young technicians and the young people I work with are not at all familiar with the history of the men and women who sacrificed their lives during the wars that we fought as a country. The men and women we sent overseas who died and are still dying as a result of injuries. I'm very discouraged about that, because I find that many of our schools in this country, I don't think, do not teach what they need to know to lay the foundation, so that if we're ever asked again, they'll know previously what has been sacrificed to allow them to remain in this country under the system.
Yeah.
My question to you is, do you speak at the schools? And secondly, have you had reunions with many of the women that you flew with?
As regarding the schools, I did speak at WSU as a It was their final exam. And that was the only time I've done schools, except one other time in Brigham City. I taught the sixth graders. I think that it wasn't the sixth grade. I think it was all the girls, to tell them women can do anything. And I haven't. The only way I've kept up with people is to go back to England from time to time. You couldn't hear me? Is to go back to England from time to time to see the same people that were in the outfit that I was with during the war. And other than that, I'm a non-joiner, so I'm not a 999. I'm not I don't I don't really like to get involved with all the different people. And I've kept in writing with most of them, but not to do anything.
How did you start in aviation? What got you going?
Okay. This is something I wasn't going to say, but it'll to add to it, I guess. In 1939, well, sometime around there, our country was isolationist, and Europe was obviously going into the war, and our Air Force needed to have a group of people that were ready to go into fighters and bombers. And they figured that the best way to do this was through the colleges. So they had what they called a civilian pilot training program in the different universities. And they took a group of like 30 at UCLA, which is where I was, and gave us basic pilot training. And that way, I mean, sure, most of you are men, but I think that somebody screamed discrimination even then, and so three of us out of the 30 got to be in with that, and I don't know how I lucked out, but I did. Yes.
What was your actual mission in England with all these airplanes?
It was just to be a pilot, to go from point A to point B.
You ferried the airplane from one place to another?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, by ourselves. I didn't get to do any four engines because you need somebody else to do that, and I didn't get to do that. So, yes.
I'd like to react to this lady's question back here in regard to histories and so forth that's being done.